Well, hello YouTubers, and welcome back to the Wholesome Missile channel. Today we're going to be doing another tool review in this episode of Duck in the Fog. Today we got something that we don't often need. A few months back, well, it's been a while. I bought this thing almost 2 years ago. This is the Apex biscuit joiner that we're going to be reviewing today. Apex is supposedly one of the largest makers of professional tools in the world, at least according to them. Never heard of them before until I bought this thing. Like I said, I bought it about 2 years ago before I really got into the big boycott of Chinese tools. Unfortunately, I still have a few more Chinese things to buy when I get back to the States, but that's a whole different ball of wax altogether. I'm guessing this thing is made in China because there's no country of origin on it anywhere. Fit and finish is, it's okay, let's put it that way. It could be better. The build quality, of course, you know, the reason I say it's probably from China is because the pigtail here is from, let's see, if I can read this, the Zhejiang Yongkang Shengda Wire Company Ltd. So that's the reason I'm guessing it's probably from China. This is interesting. This thing swivels quite readily. I've never seen that before. Anyway, let's take a good look, close-up look of the tool, and we're going to give it a test run. As you can see, I've already made my boring jigs here. We saw those in discombobulating the Bridgeport. At least the method has to, you know, how the holes were drilled. And so now we're finishing these up. So there's going to be some extra footage of that later on here in this video. So just stay tuned for that. I mean, using these things is no big deal. Standard fare. But the reason I got into this is because, you know, I'm a Festool fan, but I have a hard time with the idea of spending $1,500 on a biscuit joiner. Yes, I do like quality, and I don't have any qualms of spending money on quality tools, but like I say, a $1,500 biscuit joiner is just a little bit out of my range. Now, there are other brands of biscuit joiners out there, but again, you know, they get a little on the pricey side. So, you know, like DeWalt, they run $300–400. The other professional German makers, such as Elu and I forget what all else. I'll put them down here in the description here, or as a subtitle. You know, they all start going up pretty high into the upper stratosphere when they're, you know, as far as their prices goes. And of course, Festool, of course, is, you know, halfway to the moon. So it puts it a little bit out of our reach for the common guy. Now, granted, I'm not crazy about Chinese tools. Let me show you why. About 3 years ago, I bought this Morse taper adapter for the Bridgeport. I used it once and it broke. And the walls on this thing are a little over 1/2 millimeter thick where it broke. And so it comes from China. Beautiful work, you know. Just give you a woody looking at the fit and finish on this thing. However, the one thing that the Chinese haven't mastered yet is metallurgy. I'm sorry, it's just the nature of the beast. So guys that go out and buy all these cheap Chinese machine tools and think they're going to stick a fat hog in the ass, well, I beg to differ on that notion. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So that's one of the reasons I'm not too thrilled about Chinese tooling anymore. And then also I've bought arbors for the Bridgeport for shell mills that had so much run out that they actually destroyed one of my saws, my slitting saws, which came as a total surprise. You know, that thing had several hundredths of millimeter run out. I mean, it was bad. You could see it. And if you can see it, you know, sometimes you can hear it, you know, thrum, thrum, thrum. That's still within an acceptable tolerance, but when they are visibly out of round, then you got a problem. So that's the reason, you know, this is my little shop rant here about Chinese tooling. And so I try to avoid it wherever I can. And I end up spending sometimes a little bit more on tooling than I'd like to, but at least I have the assurance of quality. So anyway, let me bring the camera around here and we'll take a little bit closer look at this. There are some features of this machine that I do like. Of course, the sound of it is, you know, typical Chinese grinder. It grinds because basically what this is just an angle grinder with a slitting saw on it and with the head attachment to it. So, and I'm guessing you could probably take this off and put it on a regular angle grinder and make it work. So, but anyway, let's bring the camera around and take a good hard look at it. Set of brushes. That ain't no 90. Alrighty, well, as you saw in the unboxing part of the video, there was a dust bag, a dust collector bag that attaches here. There's also this little gizmo, and this is a rabbiting attachment. So you can actually make shallow rabbits with this thing by clipping this on to the bar right here. Now this is awfully brittle plastic, and I'm awfully hesitant about putting this on here. But anyway, this snaps right in. And now you have a guard here, so when the blade comes out, you don't get chips going all over the place. You can actually attach a vacuum cleaner to it, and then run this thing as a rabbiting attachment instead of a router or something like that. Let me change glasses here so I can see better up close what I'm doing. So now we have, let me take this thing back off here real quick. So we have our angles. We got two sets here. When you pull this back, you can actually go out like this to 135 degrees and then back up to 90, and then go out here to the other set where you're going the other way with it, and all the way back to 90 down here. There's a positive stop right here. Let's see if we can get that in the camera there. There's a little, there you can see it right in there. There's the set screw right here to where you can actually fine adjust, quick adjust for the 90 degree. Now the other feature I like about this is these scales here are movable. You can take these two screws loose and you can adjust them, fine adjust them to where they actually fit with the arrows, the indicator arrows that are located on the side of the thing here. The only one thing I don't like, there's just a god-awful amount of slop in it. It needs to have some, but once you lock it down, it's a positive lock, and so it's there in place. So let's turn it around. Up here you have your height adjustment knob, and then here your knob for the height. This is actually the locking nut, and then you have a depth stop here where you can have different settings. Now these biscuits have, let me grab the biscuits here. Now when you look at the biscuits, you can see there's a number on here. And this is the size of the biscuit. So this is a number 20. And so if you look on here, you have 19 is the largest number, so that would be the largest biscuit that you'd go to. And then you can also fine adjust with this screw here, set screw, the whole smear, how deep you want it to go in to accommodate your biscuit. Now these biscuits, the way they make these is when they get wet, these need to be kept extremely dry. Otherwise, when they get in contact with any kind of moisture, i.e. from the glue that you use, they swell up and get tight in the cut. So that's a nice little feature. Of course, the scale here is metric. It's not a centering scale to where you dial in the board thickness on this. You're actually dialing in the thickness of the slot between the blade, the top of the blade, and your pad. So let's take another look at some other features here. Now you got a little indicator arrow right here on the front of the machine showing which way the blade rotates. That's a positive thing because that way you know, okay, if you're going to do rabbets, your blade is rotating that way, and so you need to go in that direction, you know, where you're pushing into the blade. If you try to go the opposite direction, the blade has a tendency to grab and get away from you. And that's kind of a climb milling thing, and it winds up being extremely dangerous. So that's something you definitely want to avoid. Another thing, you got because this is just basically just an angle grinder, you got the arresting, the arresting knob right here. So when you want to change your blade, you just push that down on that, and then you can loosen the blade. So let's open up the bottom and take a look. You don't need to run the screws all the way out, just enough to clear the heads. So that's a pretty positive little dealie there. Okay, here's our cutter, 100 by 22. That's the diameter of the hole in the center, by 3.8 millimeters. So that's the thickness that you're going to get with 6 teeth, and a maximum of 13,000 RPMs. Now this only turns at 10,800, as you can see right here. So there's no danger of actually over revving the bit and causing it to get damaged. Now let me grab the little Allen wrench here. As you saw in the unboxing video, there was also a set of extra brushes that goes along with this, which is kind of nice because when you burn up the old ones, you don't have to go trying to figure out where you're going to get the next set. The little Allen wrench here is actually, surprise, surprise, a usable little tool that's actually been hardened to where it's actually a usable wrench. So there's a standard little M6 right hand thread. So now we just take our cutter off. Now the cutter also has an arrow indicating the direction of rotation, and then for when you're putting the thing back in, there's also another arrow right in here molded into the case, indicating the direction of rotation. So that way when you put the blade in, even if this doesn't have a mark, you know this is the way the blade needs to turn. So those are some of the features I really like about this, where they tried to make it as user-friendly as they possibly could. Because it can be a little frustrating sometimes when you take one of these things apart and don't know which way your blade needs to go on there. If you take it apart and then lay it down and then come back to it later, and then you forget about it, and it's like, Okay, before I put the lid back on, you can see the machine marks on here. Yeah, not bad. Now, this thing here is injected molded probably magnesium or aluminum, I would guess, or some kind of zinc. It's not very heavy duty, and it's made to look like sintered metal with this paint on here. The edges are a tad rough. I might take a file to them, but then that would show what it's really made of, and then the whole thing, this finish on here would look like shit. So I don't know, I might just leave it the way it is. Then you also have a center indicator right here, and again down here, so that way you know when you line up on your work, when you make your line, okay, that's where I need to be. Boom, boom, you have two places where that's present. And then you have it again here on the bottom. Whoops, get back in frame here. You got it again here on the bottom to where if you're holding this thing, you know, upside down, or if you're doing a, let's demonstrate that here. If you're using it like this, and now you have to do a plunge cut into your workpiece, and then you have that center line to work with there. So those are the basic features. Of course, your handlebar here, it's beefy enough. It could be a little better. I've had a lot worse in my hands. Where the joints come together of the molds, there's still a burr there. They didn't do a whole, a real great job of deburring it. Same thing along the grip here. The trigger, it's not a real beefy click, but it clicks, and you got a safety lock here so that you can't inadvertently activate the switch and turn it on. You have to actually press that in, and then you can, again, this cable swivels. I've never seen that before. That's kind of interesting. So let's put this thing back together, and we'll go to the assembly of these guys here.
Ta-da!
Well, YouTubers, that concludes today's review of the Apex biscuit grinder. Unfortunately, there's not a model number on there. Otherwise, I'd put the model number on there. In the description of the video, it just says 900 Ws, so it's 900 watts. That's about all I can say about the model of it. As you saw in the unboxing video, it comes with a molded case, and there's a little compartment in there with a lid, a clear lid for your biscuits, and then a set of extra brushes for the motor. So when you burn up the old ones, that you've got another one, another set. And then it also came with the Allen wrench and the dust collector bag and the rabbiting cover here. So all in all, after using it, you can hear, of course, the build quality of the grinder isn't the best. The head of the grinder makes an awful lot of racket. Of course, a lot of these things do. I don't know any of them that don't. But this one seems a little growlier than, say, the Makita grinder that I use. Even though the Makita is getting old and wore out, it still sounds a little better than this one does. But given how often I have to do biscuit joining work, I think this thing will serve me adequately, shall we say. It says right on the side of it, not for commercial use, and it also says in the in the user's manual or in slash safety manual that it's not intended for commercial use. Yeah, for the amount of biscuit joining that I'm going to have to do later on, I think. Yeah, I think this thing will be all right. So by the time I got it in the door, I was still under 50 bucks, and that was brand new, but that was, again, 2 years ago. You may or may not find it in eBay anymore. I bought this off of German eBay, so I don't know if this is just a Chinese knockoff from Apex. I looked at Apex's website, and there was no indication that whether or not they even made something like this anymore, or if they ever made one. So, I put in a search query for biscuit joiner and couldn't find anything, so I'm guessing either this is just like one of these Chinese knockoffs or pirated type of tool where they pirated the name, copyright infringed or whatever it was. But overall, I'll say that on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give this thing about a 6 to 7 for usability and so forth. Like I say, there are some features that I really like about it. The arrows, the indicator arrows and stuff are really a positive feature. Now, I can't compare this to DeWalt or Einhell or Festool or anything like that because I just don't have those models side by side. We're just looking at this tool in this review. So, as you saw in the build part of the video of the thing here, the chips all go out the tube here quite nicely. They don't fly out the front of it excessively. There's one or two that kind of came out, but other than that, it's pretty well discharged right out the chute where they're supposed to. So if you hook up a vacuum cleaner to this or some kind of suction device, I think that you'll end up with a better result of your cut, to where you get a smoother cut because you're not recycling the chips quite as many times. So, and unlike Festool, the cooling of this is independent of the vacuum. Festool likes to use the vacuum to provide additional cooling for their tools. Now, in the review of the jigsaw, that thing was getting pretty hot, and if I'd had the vacuum cleaner hooked up to it, that would have provided enough cooling to where heating up of the tool wouldn't have been an issue. With this thing, that's totally independent, and so that's a positive feature. So again, negatives, of course, the overall build quality leaves a little something to be desired. It could be better, The other positive thing, the design of the case, the way it's all laid out, the accessories that go with it are adequate. I wouldn't call them world class, but they are adequate. They will work. They'll do the job that I need them to do. So overall, I can't badmouth it too terribly much. So with that, I hope you folks enjoyed today's little tool review. We're able to get a little something out of it. If you have any questions or comments, critiques, suggestions, or if you have this same model of tool and have had different experiences with it, by all means put it in the comment section below. It's always good to get feedback from the viewers and you know, get their views and thoughts on some of these things, and of course critiques about, you know, how to improve the videos and stuff like that. Any feedback is always duly appreciated and helps improve the videos and helps the channel grow. So with that, we'll see you guys again soon.